Hello, this is Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. This is going to be a quick video on how to answer your 6 and 10 marker in paper 3. You will have to download the answer that I'm going to share the link for in the description box and the pinned comment below. I got a lot of requests to complete the specimen paper, clinical psychology section, because I had uploaded the answers for the shorter questions previously. Unfortunately, I do not have the time to write out the entire answer with you and to explain every line. So because of scarcity of time, I'm just putting up a quick video in which I'm going to explain to you things that you need to take care of while writing the 6 and 10 marker. I will not explain every line in the answer, so this is not some video in which I'm going to explain the content and all. Just a few tips, you can take it that way, and do read the answer yourself to understand fully how the answers are written. Okay, so without wasting time, when it comes to the 6 marker, see, you can write the 6 marker from any textbook which you are referring to. Of course, there are going to be variations in how students learn and write. Everyone's style and language is a little different. Just keep in mind one thing: where you are learning from, that is not going to be scored. What content you have written, that is going to be scored according to the table. I don't know how students are missing the table which is clearly given in the mark schemes for scoring the 6 marker. So what you have to make sure is you meet the requirements of the table more than anything. So learn from wherever you want. Don't worry about one textbook's content is different from the other textbook. Just make sure you're meeting the requirements on the table, because after all, the examiner is using that table to mark you. You definitely want your answer to fall in the 5 to 6 mark band on the table AO1. So today, with the help of the criteria, I will explain to you why this answer which I have written meets this criteria, so you understand how to structure and what content to put in any 6 marker which is coming. So that's why it's important for you either read the answer before watching this video, keep the answer alongside, then only you will understand. The first requirement is that you have to address the requirements of the question. So in the specimen question, the 6 marker was about psychological explanations of OCD. Now, meeting the requirement of the question means that whatever is given in the syllabus, not in any particular textbook. Of course, the textbook is based on the syllabus, but keeping in mind what is given in the syllabus: cognitive, behavioral and psychodynamic explanation under psychological. That is what I need to cover here, and that is what I have done in this answer. So I have dedicated one paragraph to cognitive, one to behavioral and one to psychodynamic explanation. So here I have met the requirement of the question. If, for example, I would have not covered the behavioral explanation because I didn't know the psychodynamic or the cognitive, then my answer would have fallen to a lower mark band. Next, they have said the description has to be accurate and detailed. I have seen students making mistakes in both. When it comes to accuracy, many students, especially in the behavioral explanation, they are not able to explain properly what is negative reinforcement. They are confusing negative with positive reinforcement. When it comes to psychodynamic explanation, they are confusing Oedipus complex, which is a reason for phobias, with toilet training, which is the reason for OCD. Accuracy has to be there. So if you're going to confuse any concept with another, no matter what the answer is, you're definitely losing marks. If you don't know that section, I would suggest skip it, but don't give a wrong answer just to fill up the space, because then your answer will fall in a lower mark band. I know omitting that section will also make you lose marks, but at least it does not waste the examiner's time. Next requirement is it has to be detailed. Now I have seen answers which are extremely brief. The assumption is it is 6 marker answer, so I just have to write 6 points. So literally counting and writing 6 points instead of trying to focus on showing understanding or trying to make sense of what is written. just grabbing some random 6 points and writing. No point is connected with the other. One point is on cognitive, next is on psychodynamic, again it goes back to cognitive. That is not how details are given. Details are when and where you have given the explanation. There only you have to fully detail it or fully explain it in depth, and then move on to the next explanation. And you are not to sit and count how many sentences are there. You're not expected to sit like a robot who is sitting and counting and trying to meet requirements count wise or point or sentence wise. You're expected to show your understanding of psychology. That is important. So be detailed. Also, I have seen answer 6 marker answers where there are only 3 lines. One is the definition of one, explanation, second is of the other, third is of the third one, and there's absolutely no detail. You're not scoring if you're going to write that way. Next requirement is you have to use psychological terminology. Just recently I was checking so many answers where there's no terminology. For example, if we are talking about cognitive explanation, relevant terms under this definition are thinking error. I have seen students writing faulty thinking. Faulty thinking is not the correct terminology which is to be used here. Terminology means the terms which have been given under that explanation by the theorists who have given that explanation. You don't have to remember the name of the theorist everywhere, but they have given certain terms. You have to know those. Otherwise, what is the difference between you, who is a student of psychology, and someone who's casually talking about how people's thinking is different when they have OCD? So you have to show that you're a student of psychology, you know psychological terms. Other terms under cognitive explanation are thought action fusion, thought event fusion. In behavioral explanation, a relevant term is negative reinforcement, which you need to explain. In psychodynamic explanation, anal stage, toilet training, these are key terms that you have to use. However stressful it might be for you at the moment to realize that you need to write terms, you have to. There is no option. It is a requirement of the table. Scoring is going to be done as per this table. So even if you have not gone through the terms properly now, make sure you have 2 or 3 days also before the exam. Cram up the terms. You are not to write in the paper the way you think in your head. To simplify things, like thinking error in your head, you think it's faulty thinking or it's mistaken thinking, fine. You can think of it that way in your head to understand what it means. But that is not how you write it in the essay. In the essay, you write it with the proper terms. And you have to show excellent understanding of the material. Now, how do you show understanding? You give elaborations, you give explanations, you give examples. For example, here, where I've written thought action fusion, I've given an example. What is thought action fusion? A real life example. Same thing for thought events fusion. Same thing for negative reinforcement. Same thing for how someone could become fixated at the anal stage of development. When I give examples, it shows that I've not just memorized from the textbook. I've actually understood the material. That's why I'm able to relate to real life and present an example from there. So giving examples is one approach. Otherwise, just explaining after giving proper terminology in your own words. That shows your excellent understanding of the material. Here again, if you just give some arbitrary 6 points to cover 6 marks, it will not show excellent understanding of the material. Rather, it will show some facts have been memorized and some attempt is there to meet the requirement. That's all. There's no understanding whatsoever of the material. So that's all I have to say about the 6 marker right now. Let's come to the 10 marker. So for the 10 marker, again in the same way, there's a table which is going to be used to score. So you take points exactly from the textbook and you write. You take points from some notes online, you prepare your own points. Doesn't matter where you're sourcing the content from. You make sure you meet the requirements of the table. So you want your answer to fall in the 9 to 10 mark band. Firstly, you are required to give detailed evaluation, not description. I cannot emphasize this enough. No matter how simple it sounds, students repeat everything that they have written in the 6 marker, in the 10 marker. It is so annoying to see everything is rewritten. It's such a waste of time of the examiner. When the command term is evaluate, why are you going on describing the same thing again and again? They've clearly asked you for an evaluation of the theories, research, approaches, explanation, therapies, no matter what it is. So if you're doing clinical, it's going to be treatment, therapy, explanation. If you're doing consumer, it is going to be theories, research, lot of researches in consumer. So whatever they have asked you for, you have to evaluate it. Evaluate simply means strengths and weaknesses. It definitely does not mean description. The very reason they are giving you the 6 and 10 marker from the same topic, never is it that the 6 marker is from a different topic and 10 marker is from different, is because they don't want you to mix up description and evaluation. So in the 6 marker, you're not to give strengths and weaknesses. In the 10 marker, you are not to give descriptions, explanations, elaborations of textbook content or syllabus content directly. Next requirement is analysis has to be evident. Now analysis is the key part. What is analysis? Analysis means strengths and weaknesses, not one-sidedness. So I'm going to give only the good side of cognitive, of behavioral, of psychodynamic. I'm not going to give any weaknesses or the other way around. That's not analysis. Analysis is critical thinking. You show both sides of any issue or debate you take up. Also, analysis means discussing issues and debates. Depending on it is a study or a theory, discussing methodological evaluation, discussing ethical evaluation, discussing practical usefulness of the study or theory. And of course, you cannot do everything in one answer. When I put up a list here, I don't mean everything you have to do in the answer. But analysis means these things: issues, debates, methodology, in terms of strengths and weaknesses. Nothing again to do with description, and being balanced, that is key. Strengths and weaknesses, no matter which issue, debate, methodological point, ethical, whatever you take, you analyze it. Next is good range of issues, including the named issue. Now the pattern is new, but if we see the past pattern, examiners have always been of the opinion that 3 issues stand best. You are free to give more than these many issues. You are free to give less than these issues. Even 2 suffice actually. But examiners believe that when you maintain a balance between depth and breadth, 3 serves to be the best. So in this answer that I've written, again I'm not going to discuss in detail, but I have organized it in terms of 3 paragraphs. 1 to do with individual and situational explanations, 1 to do with nature versus nurture, and the 3rd to do with nomothetic and ideographic approaches. I have taken 3 issues. I have dedicated 3 separate paragraphs to them. In each paragraph, there is analysis. So I have covered a good range of issues. The named issue, one opinion of examiners has been from the past syllabus that whatever issue is named, if we can take it right at the beginning, that is the best possible approach that we can take. It's not compulsory again, but what is suggested is try to take the issue right at the beginning. It's helpful to you also as a student if you can address it right away. Then you can think of what else you would like to discuss given whatever you have covered under individual versus situational. For example, if I write individual and situational, and one strength or weakness I take in that is of application, then I feel if the next issue I take is application to everyday life, it will overlap too much with what I have written in individual versus situational. So then I can reconsider whether I want to take application or not. So that's why it's important to take it firstly, because if I was to take application first, then I don't have a choice. Later I want to write individual versus situational or not. That I have to only write, and I might run out of points by the time I take that one. So that's why it's the best to take the named issue first. In the issue, now just a little extra beyond the table I'm explaining. Of course, we follow the Peel format for every paragraph. In fact, now that we are in A levels, we follow the Peel C format: point, evidence, explanation, link, and counterpoint. Now we are not in AS. Now we should upscale the way we evaluate. So last year, what 10 marker we used to write, 𝗘 used to suffice. Now, because as I have emphasized in analysis, giving a balanced view is important. So just giving 𝗘 would make it one-sided. There would be no counter argument or no counterpoint, which would show that we are able to balance between strengths and weaknesses. So I have written all the points in the 𝗘 format. When you're reading, you can understand that. The Hodder textbook by Professor Kitching, excellent textbook, written in the 𝗘 format. Every evaluation point that there is for any topic, you'll be able to see it is organized in PEEL, and many places there is a C. In most places they have made sure to include a counterpoint also. A little bit I had discussed about whether you can memorize those points and things like that in my previous video, so if you want you can watch that also. The next criterion on the table for scoring well is selection of evidence has to be thorough and effective, and I cannot emphasize this enough. I feel very disappointed. I see generic answer after generic answer is submitted for correction, and it's very, very frustrating as an examiner to read generic answers. Again, this is something I have discussed in the previous video also. I think it was for AS. But please, at all costs, please do not write generic answers. Whatever you know about the content, please write something. Please don't write standard answers which you could write for any topic. Very quickly, I'll give you an example. If I say the question is this, cognitive, behavioral, psychodynamic. Now, if I say individual explanation is good because it helps to understand individual differences, however, it ignores situational explanations that also contribute to the disorder. These very two sentences I could have written no matter the explanations were asked from OCD, from mood disorders, from schizophrenia, from wherever it was. Don't memorize one answer like a parrot and just go on writing it everywhere. It shows absolutely zero critical thinking, and there are very high chances if you're going to write like that, you're going to score 0 in the paper for this 10 marker. And then don't be surprised, I covered 5 issues, 10 issues. I wrote so much, but I got 0 out of 10. I got D grade in the end. You will get it, because these type of answers, I can't help sounding frustrated at this point because they're very irritating to read, and I'm being brutally honest here. Just writing, like one more example I can give, generalizability. Sample size was large, so the study was very generalizable. That means the results will apply to the population. Is this all you have learned in the textbook? Is this all you have learned under the topic? You have nothing else to say? You have only that to say which you would have said last year, this year for any study. You're going on saying that only. That's not the way of studying. It just shows you have studied nothing if you write like that. So when you're saying an individual explanation is supported, again I'm going little beyond the table and explaining from the answer. First of all, you justify why the individual side is supported in individual versus situational. I know it's too much to cover 3 explanations everywhere. So if I have to say for every explanation, this one also supports individual, that one, the answer becomes very long. So give at least 1 or 2 examples to justify why it supports individual. Saying something like individual is because personal characteristics are pointed out. What sense does it make in the context of OCD? Which personal characteristics are you talking about in any of these explanations? You have to point that out. Then coming to strengths and weaknesses. Why is it a strength? Yes, it helps to understand individual differences. But in what? Don't leave the examiner begging for questions when you write your answer. Give the answer right there. Assume the other person does not know. The examiner is an expert, of course. Assume he does not know what the answer is. You have to explain to him. So when you say individual differences are a strength, in the context of OCD, with reference to OCD, with reference to psychological explanations of OCD, why is individual differences strength? Give an example or explain whatever is your style. My style is to give examples and show my understanding. So I've given an example. You can read it. If 2 people are in the same situation, one has a tendency to show thinking errors. How that person would develop obsessions in that situation and not the other person. I have given the exact thought, the exact thinking error the person would have to make it absolutely relevant to OCD and to not make it an answer that could fit anywhere. Same way for this point, when I say situational factors should be considered, because I have to give a counterpoint, I have to show analysis. I can't just leave it at, okay, individual side is supported, that's a strength, finished. What about the weakness? I have to show critical thinking. So when I say situational explanation should have been supported, again I've given example. What are the situational factors that could result in obsessions for the person? So that is how the 10 marker is to be written. Organization is key. They don't give you marks for organization in the table, but many times you don't meet other criteria in the table because your answer is not organized. For example, in the 6 marker, you write in a hodgepodge way. There is no breaking of paragraphs. Any explanation is first, second, third. Something keeps coming back from a previous explanation. As you're writing, you remember one more point from another explanation and you write it right there. All this confusion in your mind when you represent on the paper, it makes for very poor understanding of the material. That is what is seen. So organization, your marks won't go because organization is not a criteria. But your marks will go for understanding of the material. Same way in 10 marker, if your organization is not good. Clearly in all the examiners' feedback which they've given over the years, they've mentioned sort the paragraphs issue wise, one paragraph for one issue. Now they can't be more explicit and more clear than this. Still students just mix up everything and they write. So you won't lose marks for organization, but you will lose marks for being thorough and effective in your evidence, because if you're going to break your evidence from one paragraph to the next, it won't be effective at all. It won't help to bring about your point. So when it comes to evidence, like I want to reiterate, evidence is not generic. Generic points have absolutely no evidence. In fact, evidence means using points that you have learned in the textbook to support whatever strength or weakness you're giving. And again, does not mean that you descriptively repeat what you have written in the 6 marker. Any random sentence picking up from the textbook and giving it is not evidence. Evidence is when you say it's an individual explanation, give evidence for how it supports personal characteristics of a person, and that's why it's an individual explanation. That is called evidence. Proof for the point which is made, not random sentences from the textbook. As I mentioned in the beginning, Uli, I'm pretty short on time today, so I hope the rest you can learn by reading the answer, how you have to go about it. That's all that comes to my mind to share for now. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see ahead if it's possible to upload a more detailed video. Until then, goodbye.